This is Opioid Awareness Week, Recovery Month, and so it's appropriate that we have the rally here today. I think this is the 15th year, okay. 15th year, wow, that this has been done. And I'm told that there are more people here today than ever before, and there are more resources being advertised or provided than ever before. So there are more tables, more tents. That's a good thing because we need it. It also is a sign, unfortunately, of the degree to which Ohio finds itself in the grip of an epidemic. That in every community, whether it's in the urban area here in Columbus or whether it's in the suburbs or whether it's in the rural area, we see this issue affecting people's lives. It's increasing the crime rate, it's breaking families apart, it's devastating many of our communities. I got to talk to a number of the people here who are in recovery, and I talked today about some of the ways in which we can turn the tide. Prevention, education, getting people into treatment. A lot of people aren't going into treatment who need it. Most people are not. Probably 8 out of 10 heroin addicts in Ohio are not receiving the treatment that they need. And then longer term recovery. I talked about the need for us to get our police officers and firefighters and other first responders the Narcan they need to save lives, and that goes to family members too, because it is a lifesaver. It can reverse the effects of an overdose. It's a miracle drug. I also talked about the legislation that just passed in Washington called the Comprehensive Addiction Recovery Act, which will help in all those areas. It's comprehensive. But we're at a point now in Ohio where if we don't begin to reverse this epidemic, we're going to see more devastation, more heartbreak, and one of the things that is encouraging about today is a number of people came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm in recovery." I say, "How long?" It's some at 6 months, some at 6 years, but there is hope. There is definitely a road to recovery, and getting more people to come and get that treatment that they need, get into that longer term recovery and be surrounded by their friends and their family and other supporters can work. I talked about some of the stories of success here, and we're going to hear some later.
What do you see as the most important initiative moving forward? I mean, if there's one thing that you could make happen in the next year, what do you think is the most important initiative that needs to happen to get a handle on this epidemic?
Well, the Comprehensive Addiction Recovery Act is comprehensive, so there's not just one thing. And I guess one of our problems in the past is we have just focused on one aspect or another. I think what we've learned is it has to be comprehensive. I've been at this for over 20 years. I started my own anti-drug coalition in Cincinnati years ago, just focused on prevention. Now we're focused on prevention and treatment and recovery and the first responders, because you got probably 200,000 addicts in Ohio. You've got to have something in place right now, a stopgap, to ensure that we can keep people from dying from these overdoses. So it's very broad. Today I talked about a new danger that's unfortunately come into our state, which is the synthetic heroin. It's called fentanyl or carfentanil or U4, and sadly it is causing more overdoses now in Ohio probably than anything else, probably more than heroin.
You just said
Tracy is the expert on this, but if you look at our numbers, there's been this huge increase, and it's a poison coming into our communities from other countries through the mail service. And so our new legislation, which will complement CARA, that we're trying to get passed now, so that's a priority for the next year, is to say to the mail system, you have to know where packages are coming from, where they're going to, what's in them. Just as a private carrier must require that information, so must our postal service now, because that will keep some of this poison out of our communities.
You just said that 8 out of 10 people who need services, need treatment, are not getting them.
Yes.
And if you talk to the service treatment providers, they'll tell you it's because they don't have enough beds, they don't have enough places that serve people, and there aren't enough dollars to help people pay for that service, even if it was there. So what are you doing on that front?
Yeah, there is more funding needed. Yesterday we were successful in getting some funding into the stopgap funding bill for this next couple months, which Congress is likely to pass in the next week, called the continuing resolution. It's kind of complicated, but it's not really a year-long spending bill. It's just a short-term one till the first part of December. But we actually got money into it for this issue, even though that bill typically is just whatever happened the previous year, because it's a stopgap measure. That shows how important this issue has become, that we were able to get additional funding in. I think it's about $37 million. Spreading that out over the entire year is what we need now with the actual appropriations bills. And so we're in a situation now here in Ohio where if we had more money, we would spend it wisely. We have the treatment programs in place. We have the longer-term recovery programs in place. I think long-term, housing is really an important part of this in recovery. I talked about sober housing and how that's worked here. The House of Hope here in Columbus is a great example of that. But that does require some help. Most people in sober housing are working. They're paying rent, but some people can't pay the full rent, and it's critical that they stay in these environments where they aren't going to be back, with the old gang or with their family. Even they've got to be in an environment where they're getting support. So that's part of the answer too. But again, you got a couple experts here who work on this every day. One of the issues that I talked about today, that in addition to more funding is needed, is to take the stigma away. So there are people who literally do not come forward because of the stigma associated with addiction, and families who do not help family members or friends who don't help friends because of the stigma associated with it. So part of what this rally is about today, as far as I'm concerned, is to help raise awareness of this issue and help to remove some of the stigma that's attached to it so people will come forward and get the treatment they need, which is important to all of us in our entire community.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys.
Do you think you'll get the stop back through Congress this year, or is it next Congress?
Let me hear Tracy respond.
I was just going to mention, Senator Portman mentioned housing, and the state of Ohio has invested about $15 million in recovery housing in the last 3 years, which has helped to establish more than 1,000 opportunities for people to live in a safe and sober environment while they're in early recovery. So I think that's one example of a judicious investment that's making a difference.
It really is.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.